Welcome to the Nikki Jencen Show. Oh, hey, Mom.
Oh, hey, T, what are you doing?
It's your show, remember?
Oh, are you recording?
Yeah.
Well, what are we talking about this week?
You should hear about Jenn Fredericks' story. It's amazing.
Jenn Fredericks?
Yeah.
I interviewed her.
You did?
Yeah.
I think everybody else should hear about her story, too.
On adoption, Jenn Fredericks adopted a baby girl. Listen to her story and just be amazed. Coming at ya.
Jenn Fredericks knew at a very early age that she would never be able to carry a baby. When she met her husband, together they decided they wanted a family. After going through the long adoption process, they were able to adopt a beautiful baby girl. Jenn shares her raw, intimate truth about her adoption journey with us. Here's Jenn's story.
I'm a proud adoptive mother. I have a 9-year-old daughter who we were able to bring home to our home when she was 5 weeks old. So we've had her with us, I believe in my heart, for years before she actually came home to us, and then for these beautiful 9 years that we've had raising her. I came about the adoption route due to a chronic illness in my teenage years. So I say I'm fortunate and grateful that I had known from that point in my life that I'd be building my family through adoption. So I was able to take care a lot of the grieving that a lot of parents who are looking at adoption might take a longer time to go through, as a couple. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to take that time with myself to understand that the beauty of building my family through adoption and come from that place of abundance rather than deficit. And was very, very honored and lucky to find a partner in life who was right on board and said, well, if I'm to have a child, it's to be with you, whatever way we're supposed to have a child. We took some time in the beginning of our marriage to be a married couple. And then when we were ready, did start to look into the different ways that you can become a family through adoption.
That's pretty rare to find a man like that. It is pretty rare. And I feel like you manifested that in your life. You knew that was the man that you needed to have, and you manifested beautifully.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, but you did it without even knowing that you knew you could do it.
I did. I had no idea.
Part of the human experience. It's truly amazing.
It is.
With your daughter.
Yes.
When she came home, did you feel the sense of that she was yours? Or did you feel like she was someone else's?
Well, again, I recently had time to think about this. I knew she was ours to care for. Mm-hmm. I do believe, and I speak of my it as God and the universe. I do believe that she is a child of God and the universe, and that she was given to us to shepherd through our mm-hmm. life and her life here on earth. And so in that respect, yes, she was always mine. There is a beautiful saying, I don't have it memorized, but one of the adoption creeds is that, dear child, you didn't grow in my stomach, but above it. So the spirit of her, possibly the manifestation of her, had been growing in my heart for years. And so it just sort of fell into place when she came home with us. It just felt automatically right.
It did.
It did.
Did motherhood feel automatically right for you, or do you feel like that took some time to process? Are you still processing?
Yes.
I know that I am.
Well, in every age brings a new stage of processing motherhood.
Oh,
I totally got it. Like I got the, you hold the baby and you love the baby unconditionally, and the baby is reliant on you, and you stare at the beautiful cherub-like face and that came extremely naturally for me. And I was fortunate to be able to stay at home with her for 9 months. So we brought her home at 5 weeks of age. And then I was able to be home with her and bond for 9 months before I went back into the workforce. And so I totally fell into the, overnight feedings, when she's upset, loving her and comforting her and being just proud of her existence and her being a part of our family. That all came very naturally to me and not something that I thought a lot about. But I do recall sometimes just being in the stir craziness of being in the home and needing to go out and find my interaction with some other adults at the time because my husband did work full time, and so he was gone during the day.
I can see how you would lose that sense of self. You had yourself and your husband to worry about. Then all of a sudden, a baby comes into your life. For any mom, changes you forever.
Yes.
But you have 9 months to really wrap your head around what's going to happen. And even though when it does happen, you're still in complete shock. I want to know what her life was after she was born and what happened to her within those first 5 weeks of her life.
Sure. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But what I do believe to be true is that she was unconditionally loved from the moment that she was conceived, through the moment of her birth, and through the time until she came home with us. I feel sometimes that there might be a misconception around the adoption stories and adoption plans where people automatically go to the place of, oh, that child is so blessed. That child is so blessed that you took them into your life. No, we're so blessed that that child was gifted to us from a selfless person who loved them unconditionally enough to think to make an adoption plan. And that's my story, because that's how our adoption story played out. And that might not be everyone's story. That thought that the child is the blessed one. And it really is, and I feel deep in my heart that my husband and I are the blessed ones that were able to welcome her into our family.
So obviously she doesn't remember coming home at 5 weeks with you. At what point did you share her adoption story with her?
We had wonderful education leading up into our adoption, the whole process. And it is a process. We spent 2 years preparing to become adoptive parents.
Which is way longer than an actual pregnancy.
Yeah, it is. And it's full of, different uncertainties than a pregnancy would bring. And then all of a sudden you get that call. And we were very blessed to be offered to be a part of her birthday, her true birthday. So the day that her birth mother gave birth, we were called and we were able to go to the hospital and hold her that evening. And it was beautiful and awkward because you're there with her two birth parents who are her guardians, and they are making this pact with you as being her prospective adoptive parents. And you're there sharing in the joy and the sorrow in this moment. Because you know that you are possibly meeting your forever child while they are possibly saying goodbye to their biological child in the same moment. Now, in the state that I live in, there's a period of time for all the legalities to take place. And so that's where the 5 weeks come in.
I'm not understanding exactly why they had to wait the 5 weeks.
Sure. There's a state, there, again, I don't know all of the laws, but at least here where we live, there is a waiting period where, biological parents, birth parents would say that this is the plan that they'd like to go forward with, an adoption plan. And then during that time, the child would live in a bridge care home, which is basically for us a specialized foster placement where our daughter was able to go and stay with a specialized foster family. So she was the only child in the home, and they would care for her while the birth family was able to think through their plan, and the adoptive family then was able to look forward to bringing the child home and meeting in the, I'd say, the neutral spot of the foster home or the bridge care home to nurture the child along with the bridge care family.
Okay. I
And so
understand.
then once it became, the legal waiting period had expired, where the birth family would be able to decide not to go forward with an adoption plan during that time, or go forward with the adoption plan. And then that's when legally we became her foster parents until the adoption could be finalized due to the legalities of everything in the state.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. What is your advice to other parents how to share that story with their child?
Sure. And that is where I had begun the story, that we had a great educational process that we went through leading up to the adoption and actual placement. A piece of advice we were given is to become comfortable with all of the different language that you would use in an adoptive family situation versus like a biological family. So using the word adoption, using the word birth mom, using the word birth dad, using the word mom, and knowing in your soul that you are that child's mom and you are that child's father. As I would be feeding her in the, overnight and holding her, I would just think, and I'd feel with a loving energy, and I would say, I am so blessed that we adopted you. We are so happy that you are our daughter, and just get used to it when the child is a baby, because then there isn't sort of a taboo or any type of shame or label that you might put onto it with your own tone when you start talking with your child as they're older and sharing their adoption story. I believe deeply in my soul, and this helped, we were shared this information with us during our educational process, that this is part of your child's history. And it's very important to be open to sharing that history with them when you feel that it's appropriate for your child. And at first I was like, well, yeah, right. How am I going to know what part of her story I can share with her at what point and what's too much? And it is incredible, the cues that your child will give you when they have heard enough. And it's like, start with the basic information and don't go to the adult thinking place of, and then they're going to need to have this explanation followed by this explanation. Just answer that one question. And if your child has another question, they'll ask it. And it might be a follow-up question right at that moment, or it might be a follow-up question 3 weeks later. You have no idea whenever they're going to be thinking about a different part of their life. So, but really understanding that this is a part of her story, this is a part of her history, and knowing that there may be a small hole in her that she's going to need to fill at some point, and being there in complete love and support and acceptance of that, and not letting that affect your space and part and involvement in her life, making it about her. You may have adopted because you wanted a child, but then once you bring that child home, it needs to be about them and what's right for them.
That was amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because I know that was heartfelt and true.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of women who are going through this in their lives will appreciate the truth. Do you ever wonder about genetics and not understanding that part of her?
Sure. I think possibly, and this is an interesting question for me to sort of reflect on right now in lifetime as well. I've come to the realization as of late that we all are who we are. And we have control over, to some degree, our genetics and how we let that affect our behavior or our health. And so the work that I've really done around that is within myself, to understand that I may or may not have those answers, and it doesn't matter, because when something comes up, you're going to handle it as any parent would handle it. Who's to say that her behavior that might be different than my husband and my is linked to her birth family at all? She is her own spirit having a human experience. So who's to say that anything that was brought to her through genetics is actually showing up within her?
Do you feel she's going to have questions, though, later in life?
Sure. And so what my husband and I both decided was very important to us, in conjunction with the educational process we went through, is that we are very open to having an open adoption. We do have, the medical records, quite a few, to give us some background. And we are fortunate to have that, because there are some adoptive parents and adoptive children who don't have that opportunity. So we do have that basic foundation. And we also have fostered a relationship with her birth family where we're able to reach out. Right now, we're really doing it through emails and pictures and sharing, and more so from our side to their side. And when the time comes that our daughter has more questions or something that we don't know, we're open to expanding that relationship. Again, coming from the place of, this is her life and her history, and really doing our own internal work to be okay with that. And know that that is not change the fact that we are her forever family and we are her parents, but it's going to give her a deeper understanding of herself.
Right. A deeper understanding of yourself. We can do genetic testing so that those questions can be answered. And it's becoming easier and easier these days to know your genes. And you're saying that it doesn't really matter. What matters is that I'm raising you to know who you are, what your gifts are, what your purpose is in this life. And that is put aside from any sort of genes. It doesn't matter. So I love it. Thank you so much. That was a gift. How can adopted children suffer trauma even when they were adopted as a babe with no memory of any parents or family?
This is something that I've discovered as of late as well. I've gone through my life living from a knowing, just a gut feeling, just like, no, I know that's true. And I haven't been able to put the vocabulary or energy behind it until now. So what I believe to be true is that as a child is in gestation, that child will experience the emotions, the energy that the parent is experiencing as well. So imagine yourself as a mother who is contemplating putting together an adoption plan for this child that she's carrying, her child. And imagine all of the emotions that can be going through your mind, your cells, your body. And if you are also responsible for nourishing the growing child inside of you, yes, that's with food, of course, and prenatal vitamins and all of that. But it probably also is what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. And I do believe that, the body keeps score, that on a cellular level, that our emotions do affect our DNA and everything. So it's my belief that even though our daughter came to us at a very young age, she heard her birth mom's heartbeat for 9 months. She was born. The next day, she went to her bridge care home. She was being held and loved and cared for next to a completely different heartbeat. And then she came home to us, and she's being loved and cared for next to 2 completely new heartbeats. So, like I said, I can't prove this scientifically. I do know that there are studies out there that are starting to trace, traumas and how energy and emotions can affect everyone's DNA and how that can be passed down through generations. But all I know to be true for myself is that I know that she has experienced grieving, and possibly even because of hearing different heartbeats. 3 different heartbeats in the first 5 weeks of her life. After she had been hearing the same one for 9 months. I have to feel that that's true because I'm starting to get emotional about it. So something in my knowing is saying that is true for my daughter.
That's pretty deep. That's not pretty deep. That's extraordinarily deep. And I encourage anyone listening right now to go back and listen to what Jenn said, because there's a huge underlying message there that needs to be heard, because it was so deep. You can't really understand it by listening to that just once. So I encourage you to go back and re-listen to what Jenn just had to say. It will teach you not only about yourself, about how you parent, it will teach you things that are really go beyond what you're going to hear on mainstream media. So I encourage you to really listen to her words very deeply, because that was extraordinarily profound. So thank you for that education. That was amazing. I know that this might be a weird question, but when you're going through all of this, now you're faced with these awkward people sometimes that will come up to you and ask you all sorts of inappropriate questions, you know, and there's all sorts of people that are super nosy.
Yes.
And they want to come up to you and ask personal questions. How do you diffuse that? How do you work through those feelings or emotions or questions in a loving way?
Sure. And what I try to do is take that as an educational opportunity. I also have a pet peeve of the phrase given up for adoption. How would you feel if you heard that you were given up for anything?
Right.
That's why I love the language that was instilled in my husband and I when we were going through our educational process of the adoption placement or placed for adoption or the adoption plan. How much more does that give you within your self-worth to know that I was cared and loved enough that my birth family, who are not able to care for any child, took the time to make this plan for me?
Wow.
Now what I try to do is use it as an educational opportunity. Like if I'm a little triggered by some of the language that might be used in the questions, I try to repeat the question back to the person in the way that is more honoring of an adoption story. And then I also will defer to the fact like, well, that's really her story and she'll share it with you if she's willing to share. And if not, then that's her story. I don't come up to you and ask you where you got that giant purple hat and how much it cost you. So.
Yes. Yes. Are you an open book when it comes to parents needing information about the process? So let's just say, for instance, that, you know, they're looking into adopting as well, and they know that you're an adoptive parent. Do you feel like you're open and willing to share your story to help them?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, there are so many different avenues to becoming an adoptive parent that I know my avenue, and I know the few other avenues that I researched before my husband and I decided on which avenue we were going to travel. But I feel that adoption is a blessing, and it's a wonderful way to build a family, and there are many different ways to get there. And if I haven't experienced the avenue that you would like to take, I'm willing to walk along with you in support, because I'm sure that the energy and emotions that we each have felt during that journey will match up and be the same.
Right.
And so that I'm definitely in an open book.
Good. I love it. Jenn, you have been such a blessing. Thank you for coming on the show and really opening up your heart to help others and to be an inspiration for others. I know that a lot of women will appreciate your story and your openness and your kindness and your words of wisdom.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love sharing the message that adoption is a blessing. It's also hard work, but what in life that is worth it isn't hard work. And I just thank you again for giving me this platform to share that message. And one last thought I had is that my message for adoption would be one of patience, resilience, and gratitude. And if you can really tap into those three things within yourself as you're going through the adoption journey, you're sure to get the fullness of it as you do the journey.
Before I let you go, can you tell me about the poster behind you?
Oh, yes. Yes, the poster. This is the poster for the company that I work with, Thrive Human Capital Development. And we are a personal growth and development company. We work in various industries and spaces. I'm actually the lifestyle director. So some of my passions are one-on-one personal life coaching, working with families. I also have a huge passion for helping people who have a chronic illness find their inner advocate again. But what Thrive has done for me is given me, again, the energy and the vocabulary of how I've been living my life the entire time, and I had no idea. And also given me the opportunity to meet and speak with people like you to help get the message of love and personal responsibility in the world out there, and how important it is that we all listen and understand each other and are simply being human to each other.
It's very exciting stuff, and I'm so excited that you have joined the Thrive community and that you're thriving yourself and you're teaching others that life is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And thrive on.
Thrive on. Thrive on.
Thrive on, mamas.
Yes.
Thank you, Jenn.
Thank you,
I
Nikki.
appreciate you in more ways than you can imagine.
That is all the time that we have today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Oh, hey, Tatum.
Hey, Mom.
What'd you think about the show?
I loved it.
You loved it?
Yeah.
What was your favorite part? Trick question.
Everything.
Everything. I love Jenn's words of wisdom. I think that she has a wonderful story to share with the world.
It's so amazing.
Me too. Do you know anybody who is adopted?
5 to 6 or maybe higher, I don't know.
5 to 6 people.
But I know that I do know 3.
That's wonderful. What do you think about adoption?
I think that their parents are saving their kids' lives. And also the kids are saving their parents' lives.
Hey, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week on the
Nikki
Jencen Show.
And also comment down below how you like the show.
Beautiful. High five.